There's only one authority on the Tennessee Titans, and that's the Tennessean. And there's only one show that's an authority too, and you've found it. This is Talkin' Titans.
Hello again, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Talkin' Titans. I'm Tennessee Titans beat reporter Ben Arthur, along with my colleague at the Tennessean, sports columnist Gentry Estes, here to discuss the first week of training camp. Gentry, how's it going, man?
It's good. Good. You getting used to the grind yet? About every day, 95 degrees, nice and cool as opposed to Seattle?
It's very much nice and cool out here. Oh my God, man. Honestly, man, I'm dying out there with the humidity. So the Titans have been having practices at 9. They've been starting at 9:30, going to about 11:15, and by 10, it's already like 92, and the humidity is crazy. This is something I did not deal with in 3 training camps with the Seahawks. I don't know, man. I'm figuring out a way to get through it. I'm stocking up on the water bottles and whatnot, just trying to stay focused and get through each day. So for this episode, what we're recording this late Sunday afternoon ahead of the second week of camp. The Titans will be in full pads beginning Tuesday, which is August 3rd. So Gentry and I are going to kind of go through the first few days. We want to talk about the things we think we know about the Titans through 4 days. And so I think Gentry will just kind of go one by one with our points here. So I guess I'll start. The first thing I think I know is that A.J. Brown is going to be a top 5 receiver in the NFL in 2021. I strongly believe he's going to take a massive leap in year 3. Dude looks different, out there in training camp practices. I know I haven't been covering the Titans in the past, coming over from Seattle. I don't know what he looked like. The first couple years, I just saw what, I saw on TV and whatnot and what he was doing. He was still a star player, but he just seems, and even just from talking to the guys on the beat, who've been on the ground with me at camp, AJ just looks like a different animal this year. He's lost weight. He's slimmer. He has all the confidence in the world right now. He's fully healthy. I think that's one of the biggest things. He talked about this at his media availability on Saturday. His knees are good. The ankle injury he dealt with at the end of last season, that's not bothering him anymore. And he's been torching every corner, every DB put on him at practice. The confidence there is there. He looks light on his feet. I think someone was saying he looks like a varsity player playing against middle schoolers. I remember hearing that out on the field, and that's kind of what I believe as well. And so I'd say A.J. Brown is going to establish himself as one of the best one of the top 5 receivers in the NFL. That's my first thing I think I know about the Titans through 1 week of camp.
I will agree with that one. I think AJ has looked very good, and I think that it's also been significant that he's been out there as much as he has been. AJ's had a pretty normal workload at practice so far, as opposed to hadn't really seen Julio do a whole lot, hadn't seen Derrick Henry do much of anything at all. But AJ's been out there a good bit, and yeah, he has performed well. There was one play in particular where he caught a touchdown over a jackrabbit, and I remember thinking to myself, it's like, well, he just got introduced to A.J. Brown. I mean, like AJ is proven, I think, I think last year he proved he was a legitimate number 1 receiver in the NFL, but I do think there's another level for him in terms of consistency and being a guy who, there were some games last year. He would always make plays when it mattered most. He was very clutch in that way. Very physical, yards after contact kind of guy. If he got the ball in his hands, he was trouble. But he would disappear in some games, and teams were able to kind of take him away at times. I think it's one of the reasons Corey Davis had such a good season. The addition of Julio is going to make that almost impossible for teams in dealing with him. And I agree. If you're for our fantasy football listeners, pay attention to what Ben just said, because I think he's right on that. The thing I I think I know that Logan Woodside's going to be the backup quarterback again this season. I don't think that's much of a competition to this point. From what I've seen, Deshaun Kaiser has just not been good enough so far in practice. They've kind of rotated it each day with each of the number 2 guys getting more and more reps behind Tannehill, who is, I mean, the distance between number 1 and number 2 couldn't be much farther, really. Tannehill's been very good so far, as you would expect. Logan Woodside hadn't been bad. He's made some nice throws, but Deshaun Kaiser's been bad. He has made some mistakes. I watched Todd Downing throw what looked like a walkie-talkie out of his hand the other day at practice after Kaiser missed a throw. I don't know what he's doing.
I didn't see that. I missed
He's got like a thing in his hand. It looks like a little walkie-talkie, and I don't know what he's doing with it. But he got so mad that the walkie-talkie went flying, and somebody had to, like, one of the like practice helpers had to go pick it up and go hand it to him. But it's like, that's not a good sign. That's not what you want to be seeing. But it's amazing to me, Ben, that now it seems like for 2 seasons, last preseason and this one, ever since Mariota left, they've had Logan Woodside as the number 2, and everybody talks about how confident they are in him, and yet they keep trying to replace him. They keep trying to run guys at him to take his spot, and no one to this point has been able to do it, and I don't think Deshaun Kaiser's going to either.
Yeah, I would have to also agree with you on that point, Gentry. To this point, Logan Woodside is definitely the front runner. I mean, Kaiser has all. I mean, you look at him; he has all the physical tools, right? I mean, he definitely looks the part, but he's just made too many bad decisions in the practice setting. You know, kind of the misfires. You know, holding on to the ball, then trying to make a late throw into a tight window that just isn't there. Look, Logan Woodside is definitely in the driver's seat, so to speak, for that number 2 role. I'd have to agree with you on your point as well, Gentry. So for my second thing, I think I know about the Titans. I would say the Titans kicker is not on their roster at the moment. Tucker McCann and Blake Hobboyle. I apologize if I'm butchering his name.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Right? I'm not sure it's going to matter too much longer.
Yeah, he's the 2 of them. I mean, they started off the first couple days they were fine, but the last couple practices with kicking sessions, it just has not gone well. On what was it? I want to say it was Thursday's practice. Both went 3 for 5, so 60% in just a practice setting. And then the other day, so what was it, Saturday, Hobbiel, when he actually did fine, 5 for 6, but the 50-yarder he shanked like way wide left. Like, it was just this was a 50-yarder. And then Tucker McCann missed like a 30-something yarder. And then a 42-yarder, he was 4 for 6. The kicking just hasn't been good. And this has been an issue that people talked about coming into training camp, right? Like, why isn't there a proven veteran kicker on the roster? You're rolling the dice with 2 guys who've never kicked in an NFL game, even though you had McCann in your system last year on the practice squad. He hasn't kicked in the NFL. Hobbiel is an undrafted rookie. He obviously hasn't kicked in the NFL. Kind of all the fears that come with not having, a proven kicker have kind of manifested itself in the last couple practices. And you've seen just yesterday, according to the NFL's transaction wire, they had 2 kickers in for tryouts. It's only been 4 days of camp, Gentry, and they're already trying to, look at their options there. And then they also hired a kicking coach in James Wilhoit, who kicked at the University of Tennessee in the 2000s, to, as another voice, another coach to kind of help their guys. So I'm fairly confident that the Titans kicker for this season is not on their roster.
I'm dating myself here. I covered James Wilhoit at Tennessee as a beat writer in Knoxville, and he is one of those guys you probably could see being a coach. He was always that kind of guy. In fact, I think he tweeted something or reached out last season when the Titans were having their kicking issues. It was like offering up his help, and then sure enough,
They
I guess
hired him.
Vrabel took him up on it. Hey, but there needs to be an answer there, and you're right. This has been an issue now for the last couple of seasons, and Gostkowski, he lives like down the street, so he hasn't caught on with any other team. So it wouldn't shock me to see him be brought in as the kicker again this season. But it's hard to say he was ever a comfortable option last year. I mean, he had a bunch of game-winning kicks to start the year, but it was just every week seemed to be an adventure, and you just never knew. And I mean, here's the thing, and I said it last year with Eric quite a bit, and I'll say it now. A team this good that's supposed to be playing for this many things cannot be this bad at kicker. They're going to play too many games that come down to who gets points out of drives. Too many close games against good teams that are going to. You can't be bad at kicker and expect to go win a championship in the NFL. You just can't. So they're gonna have to get that figured out. I agree. That's a real problem. It's been a real problem. For me, the next thing I guess I think I know is that they're gonna need Bud Dupree and Caleb Farley on the field sooner rather than later. That's something I think we all knew, I guess, before the start of training camp. That's not exactly terribly insightful, but I think from what I've seen so far, they really don't look. The secondary has a lot of new pieces, so I think they're still kind of feeling their way through. So I'm not going to draw a lot of conclusions yet on what the starting secondary looks like from the first week. They're still getting used to being out there, and I think we'll see. But in terms of the pass rush, it's the same guys, man. It's not it's not that much different than what they were last year before they signed Jadeveon Clowney. And I because Vic Beasley never even practiced anyway, so I guess you don't really count him. He hardly did. but I mean, it's Harold Landry is the best of what they got, and I like Harold Landry. He's a nice player, but it's been proven that they need more than him to generate a pass rush. And so the fact that Bud Dupree isn't practicing after signing this huge deal, I believe he's probably going to be questionable for the start of the regular season and recovering from the ACL. And you want the guy to be healthy, and I think he will get out there sooner rather than later. But I tell you, it's not a good sign to not see him or Caleb Farley. The big money free agent signing and the first-round draft pick, in both cases, the Titans took a gamble here on a guy who was not healthy when they decided to add this player. Yeah. Now, that player is still not healthy. And I said it at the time after the draft, Ben, that when you take Caleb Farley, I don't want to be sitting here in August going, gosh, when's he going to be able to practice? And we're sitting here in August going, gosh,
I remember that conversation. Yeah.
And you could, and I think they're maybe in a little bit better shape there, but that number 2 corner spot's way up in the air. I mean, I don't think, Christian Fulton has that on lockdown by any stretch. I think Jenkins will be on one side, but I don't think who's going to be on the other side. And I think if he's healthy and out there, it's probably Caleb Farley.
That's fair. So for my third and final, what I think I know about the Titans for 2021 is that Racey McMath will be on the initial 53-man roster. I know Gentry doesn't agree with me, and I will let him kind of address this, when he kind of talks. But man, I have been very impressed with and again, right, it's just been a week. I don't think you can always draw a ton of conclusions from 1 week of training camp without pads. There's so much that is yet to happen yet. No preseason games, all that. But man, for a guy who did literally nothing, as an offensive player at LSU, he's behind Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson and all those guys. He just wasn't a factor in that room, for LSU. He's been showing a lot offensively. He's made some really impressive catches in the end zone, down the sideline, really showing his athleticism. He's a, nice big receiver, 6'3", like about 215, obviously has the physical tools. And we know what he brings as a special teamer, a gunner type, and he brings. I mean, the Titans drafted him for that, hoping that he could potentially develop into an offensive threat. And I think we've seen, through a few days that I think he's shocked, some people just with, how much he's shown, as a pass catcher through a few days. AJ Brown was kind of saying he kind of just reminds him a little bit about like Julio, just in terms of the upside, which was kind of a wild. It was kind of wild, and he kind of caught himself too. Oh, I see you guys typing on your computer. This was during his press conference, so that was kind of a funny moment. But then, Todd Downing, the offensive coordinator, speaking highly of him as well, and then Mike Vrabel saying he's going to have a major role for us on special teams. And so just what they're saying about him and what I've seen with my eyes at this point in time, right? I mean, a lot can happen over the next several weeks and over the course of the 3 preseason games, but just from the early going, I don't see Racey McMath not being on the Titans roster.
All right. I could buy that. I think it's going to be fascinating to see how it plays out for those last 2 wide receiver spots. I think there's a lot of good candidates behind AJ Julio and Josh Reynolds, who Josh Reynolds, I think, has looked pretty good. He's not gotten a lot of attention here the last couple of days, but I saw he showed up a few times and made some. Josh Reynolds was a nice addition for that offense. That kind of ties in a little bit to what I think I know. I think I know that Anthony Ferkser is going to win people some fantasy football championships this year. He is going to be a guy that goes undrafted in a lot of these fantasy leagues, and he shouldn't, because I think he truly is going to be the number 1 tight end on an offense where they're throwing AJ, Julio, and Derrick Henry out there for defenses to worry about, and he will absolutely feast in the middle of the field in that kind of scenario. And I think he's not going to be Jonnu in terms of his size and ability as a blocker in the run game. And I think that's really the concern here, that you can't keep him on the field as much as you did with Jonnu Smith. But Ferkser he is a good receiver, and he's got good hands. They've been using him with some of these drills and 7-on-7 and some of the stuff we've been watching. He's been out there as a receiver making plays, making catches. Him and Tannehill have a good rapport. They always have. And that's, Ferkser didn't play a ton the last couple of years, but when he was on the field, he was productive, especially in the red zone, third down, situations like that, where you really learn who the quarterback trusts. And it actually was Anthony Ferkser. So I think that more than anything else is why they're kind of relying on him, maybe when they shouldn't, because, Jonnu Smith, I think the Titans are going to learn this year, was a very good football player, and they're going to miss him. Yeah. But I have been impressed with Ferkser in the past game. He, Vrabel made the point that he looks different this year. I agree with that. He does. He looks a little different. You see him out there. He is a good target in terms, good hands. He knows how to get open, and he will be in a scenario where he will be able to catch a lot of balls and put up a lot of numbers, more so than a guy who's picked in the last round of your fantasy draft, which he's going to be. Anthony Ferkser's not anywhere near the top tight ends. And I'm telling you, Ben, I got a good eye for this. I said the same thing about Darren Waller 2 years ago. So Anthony Ferkser in your fantasy drafts. The Titans, I'm not saying the Titans shouldn't have tried to go for another tight end in the offseason, because that clearly was the box they never checked. But I'm saying since they didn't, Ferkser's going to put up numbers in this offense.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. Yeah. And just to your point too, I mean, Kevin Byard spoke to us the other day and was saying he looks like a top flight, quote, a top flight tight end. Those were his words a couple of days. He's worked out with Ferk, a few times over at Lipscomb University. And yeah, I mean, with all those guys drawing attention, no one's going to be paying attention to, just that pass catching tight end over the middle. And he has a chance to put up big numbers. And then just so people do know, the Titans did actually sign a tight end yesterday. We're recording this Sunday. They signed a tight end on Saturday, more of a blocking type, Luke Stoker, who was with the Titans, previously in 2017 and 2018, a blocking type. Jeff Swaim has been sidelined the last couple days. So, they did kind of, they needed kind of a veteran voice in there. And it's not like he's going to compete for the top tight end role. I think that's Anthony Firkser's to lose. So
I think Stocker, that makes me wonder about Jeff Swaim a little more. Bring in Luke Stocker. If I had to say who that, because that's the kind of role, yeah. And Luke Stocker, by the way, been another one I covered in Knoxville, dating myself. And
who did you cover?
He was a pretty good player. He has been. He's a productive tight end. It's a good addition there. But I think in terms of, if you're Anthony Firkser, this is your moment, right? You're a guy who probably is lucky to be in the league. And you've spent the last couple of years kind of as a fringe guy. But whenever the Titans called on him, which was usually passing situations, third downs, he was very good in the red zone. Tannehill has liked throwing the ball to him because he has been able to make big plays. I can remember the playoff game in New England a couple seasons ago. Firkser had a couple of huge catches on third downs that, Tannehill didn't throw the ball much in that game. Derek ran for about 1 million yards in that game. But when they did throw it, a lot of it seemed to go to Anthony Firkser. So, there's clearly a reason they felt like they had enough at tight end to let Jonnu walk and be able to keep going. So, and I think so far we've seen a little bit of that. Like Firkser has been better, and I think he's the kind of guy who understands the responsibility he's getting is a pretty rare opportunity for a guy who played at Harvard and, is now getting a chance like this in the league.
Absolutely. Well, that will do it for us for this edition of the Talkin' Titans podcast. We hope you'll subscribe to Tennessean.com if you haven't already. And please remember to subscribe on iTunes, Google Play, or wherever it is you get your podcasts, and drop us a review and rating while you're at it. From Ben Arthur and Gentry Estes, thanks for listening. We'll see you guys next time.
Talkin' Titans hosts each Thursday at Tennessean.com. You can also subscribe to Talkin' Titans for free on Apple Podcasts and Google Play. I'm Sean King. Talkin' Titans is a production of the Tennessean.